that you are willing to spend time investing intentionally in the things that are important in their lives, I think creates an incredible platform for a really strong relationship.
Thank you for joining us for the Blended Kingdom Families podcast. This podcast is for blended families, the people who love them, and anyone who just wants to improve their marriage and family relationships.
BKF exists to break the cycle of divorce, equip marriages, and unite blended families with the truth of God's Word. It is our hope that today you will receive biblical guidance and practical resources that will bring unity and peace to create your thriving, healthy home. Let's jump in.
Hey guys, Scott and Vanessa Martindale, thank you so much for joining the Blended Kingdom Families podcast. If you haven't already, please take an opportunity, like, share, leave us a comment, leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. If you happen to be listening on Audible, just know that the full video format of this podcast is on our YouTube channel. You can go and check it out and subscribe and get notified every Monday when we drop a new podcast. We are so excited today to welcome Dr. Phil Schubert, president of Abilene Christian University. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Delighted to be here.
Yes, Dr. Schubert, we are so humbled, and we've gotten to know you more on a personal level, and it's just an honor just to have you here and just get some wisdom and knowledge from you. So we're excited.
Well, I hope I don't disappoint you. That's great.
You're going to be great.
Well, just to tell you guys a little bit about Dr. Schubert, he lives in Abilene, Texas, which is my hometown, born and raised. Married to Brooke, father of 3, and again, president of Abilene Christian University. Abilene Christian is where you graduated from.
That's my spot.
That's right.
I mean, that is where I grew up from. I think from about the age of, I probably started going to the ACU campus probably when I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
So Camp Kadesh, and then went as an incoming freshman, and then graduated some years later. Had a wonderful time. Met a lot of.
That's the part we glossed over, right? Some years later.
Yeah, it was my undergrad was a lengthy experience that I felt like, I needed to be there a few more years. I wasn't in an extreme hurry to grow up.
Yeah,
that's good. So, Dr. Schubert, thanks for being here. You are the captain, the leader of Abilene Christian. Obviously, we know your heart for Christian education, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. But before we get into that, tell us more about you, what you guys like to do. Tell us about your family.
Well, in the introduction, it said I'm the father of 3, which is true, but I'm also the stepfather of 4 others. So between Brooke and me, we've got 7.
Wow.
And so they're 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, and 14.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
So Brooke has 4, I have 3. All of them, for the most part, are grown, except for the 14-year-old daughter is my daughter, and she's a freshman in high school. So a lot of our lives are centered around different things that our kids are doing, even though most of them, or all but one, don't live with us. Yeah. And we share time with my ex-wife, with Ella, our youngest, who lives also in Abilene. So
you have 6 in the 20s.
We have 6 in the 20s.
Wow.
That's right.
I feel like when you give one life advice, you should group text that to the whole group. So this could apply to anybody. One person asked that I'll give it to everybody.
So a lot of times people will ask, well, how often do you get them all together? And that is rare because they're all doing their own thing. We have one that's married out of the 7, another one that's engaged. So the one that's married is Brooks, and then I've got my oldest our daughter is engaged to be married in May. So we're going to have our second of the group that will be married. But we have had them together several times over holidays, different things. So one of the fun things that we did in January, and we know that trying to plan in too much detail doesn't work with that many people. So what we said is, we're going to go skiing. Yeah. We're going to go to Telluride. Here are the dates we're going. All of you are invited to come if you want to go. Let us know who's in. We thought maybe we'd get 5 or 6 of them.
They all came.
All 9.
I love it.
The spouse and the fiance, so we had 11 folks that went skiing in Telluride and had a blast.
Oh, that's fun. And Telluride's beautiful.
Oh, it was great. It's the first time I had ever been there.
Oh, okay.
I had been before, but I had never been. So
I feel like you're going to get this huge drop of grandkids at one time too. Boom, here's 20 of them.
That's right.
Well, that is awesome. And we love big families. Vanessa and I have 4, and we just love those vacation times, spending that time together.
Yeah.
And I love that, and again, being a step parent, I'm the step parent as well, how important that quality growing time is together, and just that fun time that you guys can bond together.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about ACU. So again, not very often you get a chance. I know a lot of our listeners are focused on their kids and their education. And, I know how much I benefited from going to ACU. The relationships I had with professors I had and professors that I didn't have in class, just the people that I knew, and those life conversations. I just want to know, from your standpoint, what do you believe is the set aside? What sets ACU apart from other schools?
I think it gets right to the heart of what you just mentioned. So what I would say for myself, which is probably very similar to what you might describe about your experience, and quite frankly, in my role, a lot of what I do is visit with people about the university, alumni, donors, friends, and I hear this story over and over again. It's the story of when I came to ACU, I found a community of people that I was embedded in, but more importantly, I found mentors who believed in me. They saw the best in me and they pushed me to be everything that I could be. And I find that that's the thing I think that makes ACU different. And it all comes from a foundation of wanting to serve Christ in all that we do. And so the common bond that we all share is a belief in Jesus as our Father and in God as the Creator, and a desire collectively to honor God with our lives and through the university's work. And so that sense of common bond, I think, allows relationships to go deeper and become broader than in a secular setting. We hire faculty and staff who absolutely have a passion to want to get to know every student. One of the things I will always say to parents or students is, we believe that every single student that comes to ACU is uniquely created in God's image and destined for greatness according to what He has called them to do in the world. And it's our incredible honor to get to walk with those students in that journey of discovery. And so I think the thing that sets us apart is a community of people who are looking for that opportunity to get to know you as you have been created in Christ and help encourage you to be what He's called you to be.
I love that.
That's so good.
I absolutely do.
Well, and Dr. Schubert, being the president and all that comes along with that, just more of a personal question, how does your career affect, your marriage and your kids? Because we talk a lot about marriage and kids and life balance and, between all the things we do. So what does that look like for you?
There are a couple of jokes that come with that, and sometimes people will say, well, how do you get to be the president of ACU? And I will say, well, you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. You look up one morning and you realize what just happened. And then I also tell them that, being president, when they say, what's it like? I said, well, it's basically what it means is that somebody's going to be mad at you for something every day, and you get to kind of show up and figure out what it is. And I say that jokingly, but the reality is there's a lot of truth to that. Any role of leadership, part of what comes with that is the scrutiny of decision and the fact that means you're going to be criticized. And that actually is relevant because that can be hard on a family. It can be hard on your spouse, it can be hard on your kids, because you find yourself in the public eye more often than if you were not in a role of leadership. And people are pretty free, as we know, to criticize, and social media has made that a whole lot easier. But the way I look at it is that what I get to do every day is show up and try to bring the kind of experience to the table that I got to have and that you got to have. And so any amount of downside to that job is completely overcome with the knowledge that what I get to do is show up and try to create an experience where a young man or a young woman is going to more fully see themselves as creating God's image and will leave with a passion and a desire to follow Jesus with their life and use their skills to do that. So I think engaging your family in that journey, my kids love being part of ACU. We've got one of our 7 that's enrolled at ACU currently. We've had several others that have attended ACU that are now graduated, and we got one that we're hoping might when it's time for her to make the decision, but not all of our kids have. And so two of mine went to different places, and part of that had to do with the visibility of my role. I mean, my daughter, Sydney, who will be getting married in May, who's 25, told me in the college selection process, Dad, I know I would love ACU, but I want to know I can do it on my own. And that's part of what I hadn't necessarily anticipated is one of the byproducts of the job is that maybe for your own children, it's a little bit of a different experience.
Yeah. That's good.
Well, and I'm glad you said the word experiences, because that's what we're going to dive into next. And as I was reading over this question, and the question really is what experiences can students expect? And we're gonna relate this to a lot of different areas, but I just want to shine a little bit of light on two experiences that I just remember off the top of my head. So the first one was before I even attended ACU, when I was in my teenage years. I mentioned before there's a camp called Camp Kadesh. And I think they still do this.
Sure, yeah.
One of the most powerful experiences I ever had as a young Christian, getting surrounded by a lot of kids that all kind of were dealing with the same thing. But it started getting me introduced to the culture of ACU and gave me opportunities to experience Christ without the lens of my parents. It was the first time I'd ever had that experience. So if you have kids that are in those teenage years and you're looking for them to have an experience, Camp Kadesh, I think is absolute amazing. And it also gives them an opportunity to meet like-minded people who will be attending like-minded universities.
Yeah.
And I think that was always that bridge, is when I walked onto ACU's campus, I knew people already. I knew a lot of people. And the second experience that I had, that I remember, is opening chapel. The fact that ACU is a little more unique because they sing in all a cappella, which is something that if you've never experienced it before, it really is a magical experience. It is so God-breathed to hear that many people, 5,000-6,000 people in an auditorium singing all a cappella. And those are the two experiences that I remember at the top of my head, and there's 1,000 others. But from your side, Dr. Schubert, what experiences do you hope, beyond meeting and connecting with professors, what do you hope that they experience at ACU?
You know, there's so many things, as you noted, that traverse the landscape of what a college experience can be. And so, you know, this might surprise you. What I hope they experience is that ACU is also a good place to make some mistakes. I mean, I think one of the things our kids need when they go to college is the space away from their mom and dad, and the freedom to make some decisions. And inevitably, they're going to make some poor choices. And so what I want them to experience, which I think is one of the most profound things for all of us in life, is to make a mistake and then recover from it. And to realize there's wisdom and life experience that I've gained in a community of people that are not going to be ready to beat me over the head as much as they are wanting to hold me accountable, but then walk with me to say, okay, let's look at this together. So that I don't have to have the fear of saying, yeah, I did that, or I shouldn't have done that. But instead, a community of people that are willing to sit down and say, let's walk through this together. You can be better, you can do better, and let's learn from this. So I want for that to have that experience. I also want them to experience peers that are good influences on them. We all need people to encourage us to be the best version of ourselves.
Absolutely.
And I believe thoroughly that the vast majority of our students at ACU are great young men and women. They may not exhibit that on every single day, but the reality is they're searching for that rhythm of life that brings out the best in who they are. And I think that they will typically find people at ACU, friends, that will encourage them to be the best version of themselves. And I want that for them also. I also want them to experience mentors who will challenge them to think about the big questions of life. For example, who is it that you want to be, really, and why? And what do you want the impact of your life to look like, and why? Those are big questions that I hope every college student has an opportunity at some point to begin to answer, because I think it shapes the trajectory of the rest of their lives.
Oh, that's so good. And we have so many people who are listening and watching right now, blended families, but a lot of these families, they're becoming empty nesters, so they have a lot of kids going to college. And so what encouragement or advice, Dr. Schubert, would you give parents and blended families, and maybe you can speak from your own experience as well, who have children that are getting ready to go off to college?
You know, I think one of the things that's so important is to realize, even when it may feel difficult, that your kids are ready. You have poured into them for 18 years. You have invested, you've protected in many cases, you've walked with them through the journey of all that comes with those years and the impact of those years. And now you're in a situation to see this new door of opportunity open. And I get that for most parents, it can be a bit scary, especially if it's your first child.
Yeah.
But to trust that God has prepared them for this time and to be willing to give them the space that they need to grow as an individual. One of the greatest things that happened to me at Abilene Christian was I grew up in a family of faith with a mom and dad who were devout Christians who instilled in me at an early age those values. But it wasn't until I went to ACU and I experienced the freedom of being on my own and whether or not I was going to get up on a Sunday morning and go to church or invest myself in a faith community, that faith became mine.
Yeah.
I'd seen it and it was in proximity to me, but it wasn't mine until I had the opportunity to decide for myself. And so I experience sometimes parents who have a difficulty in giving their child the space that they need to develop their own identity and make those decisions. So one of my encouragements is be available, but create the space for them to become themselves.
Yeah, no, that's good. Would you have any advice? So, and I always think about this because our 16-year-old, and he wants to go to ACU. I mean, he's
good.
Yeah.
Wildcats.
Yeah,
Man, he's trying to get him there.
I know. I'm like, you don't want to look at anything else. He's like, no, ACU. I'm like, okay.
That is one smart young man.
I'm telling you.
And I think about this, how in blended families, that co-parenting dynamic, how that changes when they are adults, they can make decisions for themselves. And going off to college. And so, is there any, could you just give maybe just any advice to that as to maybe how that changes or how you can make that experience better for the kids or just shed any light on that?
Yeah, I think that what I would shed is take an interest. So there's no doubt it's different. And I think each family probably has a different trajectory. Brooke and I have only been married for several years, and so we didn't co-parent our 7 from the time that they were young.
Yeah.
We pretty well became a family unit after the majority of our kids were through their adolescent stage. So I think that's different.
Sure.
So I don't have the experience of speaking to how you co-parent younger kids, but as it relates to the older kids, I think it feels more like a friendship relationship, which is probably not the right thing when the kids are younger because there needs to be that authority.
Yeah.
But taking an interest.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Being a co-parent of kids who aren't biologically yours. Big part of that is investing yourself in what is interesting to them.
Yeah.
Being part of their lives, whether it's the college selection process, whether it's the hobbies that they may really enjoy, the opportunity to help them through a job search or mentoring in a first job, that you are willing to spend time investing intentionally in the things that are important in their lives, I think creates an incredible platform for a really strong relationship and the ability to have that pay huge dividends for both the parent, the co-parent, as well as the child. And it's just so important.
So good.
Well, and I think this process, I mean, a lot of people look at it and go, okay, the day they turn 18 or the day they leave for college, all of a sudden now my role gets switched. And I don't think it necessarily starts at that particular moment because, kids even, Michael is 16 right now, and I start to see that, he's trying to carve his path and make his way into an adult world where he wants to make those decisions, to make mistakes, but also have the security of home. But I can imagine as they go to college and, you get into that role where you're really in a support role.
Yeah.
Even as co-parents, you may have been in this, well, we raised this child or we raised these children and everything decision was ours and we shared that together. Then it comes to the point in time where the child is maybe at school and they're like, hey, I'm making my own decisions here. Yeah. And our job as parents is to support them, guide them if asked, if needed, but hopefully trust that God's got the plan and and that's why, again, I love Abilene Christian. I love a lot of Christian schools, but I really, my firsthand knowledge of ACU is there's such a supportive culture of when there are problems to go to very wise people who have open arms and open doors that say, you know what, just come and let's talk about this. Let's have a conversation. Let's make the best decision we can, but let's make it together and let's make it with God. That's why I think it's so important. And I think blended families, as they're listening to this and they're thinking, well, college is far away. No, it will get here soon.
Yeah. It's coming fast, right?
And it's good to start planting seeds. It's good to start asking questions of like, hey, where do you see your future? Because one thing I've been surprised about is at 15, 16, the answer is, I don't know. What are you going to do? I don't know. Where are you going to go to school? I don't know. Like, do you know what you need to get into school? I don't know. Right. And those are the good questions to ask because they start thinking about the future.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just excited that people are hearing this.
I think it's also a fine line too, when you're at that stage. I heard a phrase one time, somebody said, do as little as you can for your kids and as much as you can with your kids.
Yeah.
And so I think there's some real wisdom in that, especially when you begin, because it makes parents feel a bit unnerved when it's answered everything, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. And you think, okay, I've got to intervene.
I have lost here. I've got to do something.
The SAT, the ACT. Yeah. I've got to make sure they pick their class schedule and do all these things. And the reality is, we can, I think, as parents, go too far.
Yeah.
And what we instead need is to walk alongside and do exactly what you said, which was trust that God is going to intervene and bring them along in a way that is unique and individual to them. But we as parents are there continually to support, but not to do it for them.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
And preparation and prayer is something that I would encourage anybody who's listening here because they are big steps. Moving your kids to another location and then going out on their own, it's a big deal. So prepare in prayer that God's got a plan for them. Again, wherever they choose to go to school, pray for that. Again, I'm a little biased because I love ACU. And I think it's a great place.
It is a great place.
It really is. And we were talking about that on the way in. It's just, you drive up and it feels different.
Sure.
It's got a good feel to it.
Yeah. Well, and Dr. Schubert, we're coming to the end of the podcast, and this is just a staple question we ask all of our guests, but the name of our ministry is Blended Kingdom Families. So we'd like to ask you, what does a Blended Kingdom family mean to you?
I'm sure there are a lot of different answers to that. One of the things I think I've seen, and maybe what God has shown me in our experience, is that blended families, I think, give everyone the opportunity to be selfish. Yeah. There are plenty of reasons. If you have found yourself navigating a blended family environment, there are a lot of temptations to act in ways that are more focused on what your needs are and begin to kind of protect against the impacts of what that means. I mean, all of our kids have had to sacrifice, right? The parents, as they travel that blended family path, find themselves in unusual and difficult situations. And I think anyone could find complete logic and rationale in kind of stepping back and saying kind of, woe is me. And I think what a blended kingdom family does is it's a family that starts with a mom and dad who are willing to be selfless, as I think Scripture calls us to be, to recognize that there is beauty, amazing beauty that is waiting to emanate from this blended family. But what it means is we've got to kind of push our needs aside as an individual and collectively focus on the well-being of our family and model that for our kids so that in turn, they would find the comfort and confidence to do the same thing. And I've watched my kids and Brooke's kids exhibit that in an incredible way to not, this isn't about me, this is about how can we as a family come together and honor God and each other by being willing to defer. And so that's what I would say.
I like that a lot.
I do too.
Good. Yeah.
I like it.
I know, it's always fun hearing everybody's, what's on
response
their heart. Yeah. It's awesome.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Dr. Schubert, for being here. We want to give an opportunity, tell people where they can find ACU, where they can find all the resources that you'd like to point them to.
www.acu.edu. That's our website. Anything you want, you can find there. Of course, anytime, any of you, if you're ever wanting to come out and visit Abilene Christian University, shoot me an email. president@acu.edu is my email address. Would love to come and meet you. Tell me that you heard about it on the Blended Families Kingdom podcast, and I'd love to come and say hello.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, just real quick, ACU is in West Texas, in Abilene, Texas. It is a great little place. So,
that's right.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being with us, Dr. Schubert. It really has been an honor.
My pleasure.
Guys, thanks so much for joining in today. Please make sure, like, share, respond, podcast. We'd love to have more subscribers and love to have you in our community. Have a great day.
Be blessed in all that you do today.
Hey guys, so glad you were here with us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
And you can find more resources from Blended Kingdom Families at blendedkingdomfamilies.com. Join us again next time as we hang out with more amazing podcast guests. And remember, nothing will be impossible with God.